All right, so let's dive right into this.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be looking at something that's been in the news a little bit lately, the detection of avian flu.
Oh, yeah.
Bird flu at Rouge National Urban Park
Okay.
in Scarborough. You know, it's kind of unsettling to hear about this happening in a place that we usually associate with peaceful hikes and bird watching and all that.
Right.
So we've got some articles here from CTV News and some reports from the Canadian government website to try and understand what's going on and what it means for you.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
This case really shows how interconnected urban environments and wildlife health are.
Mm-hmm.
You might not always think about it, but what impacts the birds in Rouge Park can impact the entire ecosystem.
Right.
Even the people who live in and around the park.
Exactly. And speaking of impact, maybe we should start with the basics.
Sure.
What exactly is avian flu and why should we be concerned about it, especially in a place like Rouge Park?
Well, avian influenza, or bird flu as it's sometimes called,
Right.
is a viral infection that primarily affects birds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a serious concern because certain subtypes of the virus, like H5N1, which was detected in Rouge Park, can spread quickly among bird populations
Oh, wow.
and has the potential, although rare,
Yeah.
to jump to humans.
Okay.
This is particularly worrisome for those who work closely with poultry,
Right.
but it's something everyone should be aware of.
Okay, so it can spread to humans, but it's not common.
Exactly.
Still definitely unsettling to hear about it in a place like Rouge Park.
Right.
CTV News reported that officials have confirmed one case of H5N1 avian flu in Canadian geese at the park.
Oh, wow.
And they're investigating 5 more potential cases.
Okay.
What does this mean for people visiting the park,
Right.
especially those with pets?
Sure.
Should we be worried about bringing our dogs for walks?
It's understandable to be concerned. According to the Canadian government website, these wild birds can spread the virus through direct contact with other birds,
Right.
or even by contaminating the environment, including water sources.
Okay.
This makes it crucial for park visitors to take precautions.
Yeah.
Canada officials are advising people to keep their dogs leashed
Okay.
and to steer clear of any sick or dead birds they may come across.
Okay.
While the risk of transmission to humans and pets remains low,
Right.
it's always best to err on the side of caution.
So it sounds like being informed and taking preventative measures is key.
Except,
But what if you have birds of your own?
yeah.
What can people do to protect their flocks, especially considering the virus is already present in the area?
That's where biosecurity measures become extremely important.
Okay.
The Canadian government website actually outlines 5 key biosecurity rules that can help prevent the spread of avian flu.
Wow. 5. Okay.
The first one might seem counterintuitive in a natural park setting, but it's crucial to prevent any contact between your domestic birds and wild birds or even other animals.
Okay.
This might mean keeping your birds in enclosed spaces
Right.
or using netting to create a barrier.
Makes sense you don't want your chickens hanging out with potentially infected geese.
Right.
But wouldn't separating domestic birds from the wild disrupt the natural ecosystem in some way?
That's a really insightful question. And it speaks to the complexities of this situation.
Yeah.
While we want to protect domestic birds, it's also important to consider the potential impact of these measures on the overall ecosystem.
Right.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
But in a situation like this, where there's a confirmed outbreak, prioritizing the health of both domestic and wild bird populations is essential.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned 5 biosecurity rules. What are the other 4?
Well, the second rule emphasizes cleanliness.
Okay.
Regular cleaning of poultry coops, water, and food containers. And even your clothing and boots before entering areas where your birds are kept can significantly reduce the risk of transmission.
Okay.
Think of it like washing your hands before eating. It's a simple habit that can make a big difference.
It's like those public health announcements we all saw during flu season.
Exactly.
Good hygiene practices are essential, whether it's for humans or birds.
Yes.
But honestly, remembering to clean everything so thoroughly seems like a challenge.
Yeah.
What are some of the signs of bird flu that people should be looking out for so they know when to be extra cautious?
That's a great point. Being able to recognize the signs of bird flu early on is crucial.
Yeah.
Some things to watch for include a lack of energy in your birds,
Okay.
decreased egg production, any swelling, particularly around the head,
Okay.
and signs of respiratory problems like coughing or sneezing.
Oh, wow.
And of course, sudden death in your birds is a major red flag.
Those are some pretty alarming symptoms.
Yeah.
What should someone do if they suspect their birds are infected?
In Canada, bird owners are legally obligated to report any suspected cases of avian flu.
Okay.
They can do this by contacting a veterinarian.
Right.
Or the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, also known as the CFIA.
Okay.
Early reporting is crucial to containing outbreaks and protecting both animal and human health.
So contacting a vet or the CFIA is the first step.
Right.
What if you come across a sick or dead wild bird, like one of the geese in Rouge Park?
Yeah.
Who do you report that to?
For wild birds, you would contact the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative, or CWHC.
Okay.
They track wild bird diseases.
Right.
And use this information to monitor the overall health of bird populations. Your report could help them understand the spread of avian flu and take steps to mitigate its impact.
Okay, so two different agencies depending on whether it's a domestic bird or a wild bird.
Exactly.
It sounds like there's a well-established system in place for recording these cases.
Yes, there is, and it's important for everyone to know about these resources and how to use them. Reporting potential cases can make a real difference in controlling the spread of the virus.
I completely agree. Now, before I move on, I'm curious about something you mentioned earlier, the risk to humans.
Yeah.
Health Canada has some information about this. Could you tell us what they say?
Yeah.
And how worried should I be about visiting the park?
Yeah. Health Canada emphasizes that the risk of humans contracting avian flu is generally low, but it's not non-existent.
Okay.
The people most at risk are those who work directly with poultry,
Yeah.
like farmers and poultry workers.
Okay.
For the average person visiting Rouge Park, the main thing is to avoid direct contact with sick or dead birds and to practice good hygiene, like washing your hands after being outdoors.
That makes me feel a bit better about my upcoming weekend hike. But it does raise a bigger question.
Sure.
How can urban parks like Rouge Park balance the need for public access with protecting wildlife health, especially during outbreaks like this?
That's a crucial question.
Right.
And it's one that park management across the world is grappling with.
Yeah.
You want people to be able to enjoy these natural spaces, but you also need to safeguard the animals that live there and the overall health of the ecosystem.
Right.
It's a complex challenge with no easy answers.
It sounds like it. Where do you even begin to find that balance?
Well, a good starting point is clear communication and education.
Okay.
Parks Canada needs to provide visitors with accurate and up-to-date information about avian flu, the precautions they should take,
Yeah.
and what to do if they encounter a sick or dead bird.
Okay.
Visual reminders, like signs around the park, can be really effective in reinforcing these messages.
I can imagine those signs.
Yeah.
Keep your doggo on a leash, folks.
Exactly.
And no feeding the feathered friends.
Simple, clear messages.
Right.
But beyond that, they might also need to consider temporary closures of certain areas if the outbreak worsens.
Okay.
It's similar to how they sometimes close beaches if there's high bacteria levels in the water.
Right. It's about prioritizing public health and safety for both humans and animals.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that managing an urban park is like walking a tightrope. You're constantly trying to balance competing interests.
Exactly.
You've got park visitors, pet owners, bird watchers, researchers, the local community who live nearby.
You've got it.
So many different people.
All these different stakeholders, each with their own perspectives and concerns.
Right.
So how do you create policies and guidelines that take everyone's interests into account?
Yeah.
It's a real challenge.
It almost feels like you need a whole new set of rules for urban parks compared to more traditional, wilder parks.
In a way, you do. Urban parks face unique challenges.
Okay.
Think about the density of human population surrounding them, the frequency of interaction between people and wildlife,
Yeah.
the impact of human activities on the environment. It all adds up to a very different dynamic.
Right.
And it's something that we as a society need to be more aware of.
It sounds like a bit of a paradigm shift is needed, both in terms of how we manage these parks and how we as individuals interact with them.
I agree. And I think technology could play an interesting role in that shift.
Okay, how so?
Imagine using drones or cameras to monitor bird populations and detect potential outbreaks earlier.
That's a great point. Early detection is key. Are there already technologies like that being used?
Absolutely.
Really?
Researchers are already using AI and machine learning to track animal movements and predict disease spread.
Oh, wow.
Applying those technologies in urban parks could be a game changer in terms of early warning systems for potential outbreaks. We can use data to make more informed decisions about park management and public safety.
It's amazing how technology can provide solutions to these complex problems.
Yeah.
We've talked about education, communication, potential policy changes,
Right.
and now even integrating technology.
It's really interesting.
It's a multifaceted approach for a multifaceted challenge.
It is. And this isn't just a challenge for Rouge Park, you know? It's something that urban parks around the world are going to need to grapple with as we see more of these zoonotic diseases emerging.
I'm glad you brought up the term zoonotic diseases.
Yeah.
Could you explain what that means for those who might not be familiar with it?
Of course, zoonotic diseases are diseases that can be transmitted from animals to humans.
Okay.
Avian flu is one example, but there are many others, like rabies, Lyme disease,
Right?
and even COVID-19.
Oh, wow.
As human populations continue to expand and encroach on wildlife habitats, the risk of these spillover events increases.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It really drives home the importance of understanding these connections between human health, animal health, and the health of our environment.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected.
Yeah.
And we need to move beyond the mindset that human health is somehow separate from the health of the planet.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this discussion.
We have.
From the specifics of the avian flu outbreak in Rouge Park to the broader implications of zoonotic diseases and the future of urban parks.
It's fascinating.
What stands out to you as the most important takeaway for our listener?
What strikes me is how this outbreak highlights the delicate balance we need to maintain between our urban environments and the natural world.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're all interconnected and that our actions can have ripple effects throughout the ecosystem.
That's a powerful insight. It's not just about protecting ourselves.
Right.
It's an understanding that our actions have consequences for the entire web of life.
Exactly. And this leads us to a thought-provoking question for the listener.
Okay.
How can we as individuals and as society become better stewards of urban green spaces like Rouge Park? What role can we each play in ensuring their health and vitality for generations to come?
That's a great question to ponder. We'll be back after a short break to explore some potential answers and wrap up our deep dive into this important topic. Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of tackle that question you left us with about how we can all become better stewards of urban green spaces, like Rouge Park.
Yeah,
It's a big question.
it is.
To be honest, it feels a little overwhelming at first.
Right.
Where do we even begin?
It's true. It can seem daunting,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to remember that even small actions, when multiplied across a community,
Yeah.
can have a significant impact.
Okay.
It's about shifting our mindset and incorporating simple practices into our daily lives.
So you're saying it's not about grand gestures, it's about making small, sustainable changes.
Exactly. And some of those changes might surprise you.
Okay, like what?
Remember those biosecurity tips we discussed earlier?
Uh-huh.
The ones about preventing contact between domestic and wild birds
Yeah.
and maintaining cleanliness?
Right.
Well, those principles can apply to all of us,
Okay.
not just those with backyard chickens.
You mean like not feeding the ducks?
Exactly.
I have to admit, I've been guilty of that in the past.
Yeah, I always thought I was being kind.
It's a common misconception. We often think we're helping by feeding wildlife, but in reality, it can do more harm than good.
Really?
It can make them dependent on humans, alter their natural foraging behaviors, and even contribute to the spread of diseases like avian flu.
Wow, I had no idea it was that detrimental.
Yeah,
So resist the urge to share those breadcrumbs. Got it.
right.
Okay, what other seemingly small actions can we take that can actually make a big difference?
Something as simple as staying on designated trails
Okay.
and keeping dogs leashed, as Parks Canada advises, can have a huge impact.
Yeah.
It minimizes our disruption of wildlife habitats and reduces the risk of our pets coming into contact with sick birds.
That makes sense. And it reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about dogs potentially carrying the virus back home on their fur.
Yeah,
Even if our furry friends don't get sick themselves, they could unknowingly spread the virus.
precisely.
Yeah.
And speaking of home, remember our discussion about the importance of cleanliness for preventing the spread of avian flu?
That extends to our own backyards and gardens too.
So are you suggesting I need to start disinfecting my bird feeders?
Well, regularly cleaning bird feeders and baths is good practice regardless of an outbreak. It helps prevent the spread of any diseases among wild birds, but it becomes even more important during a situation like this.
Okay.
Think of it as a simple act of neighborly kindness. But for our feathered neighbors,
I like that, being a good neighbor to the birds.
exactly.
Makes it feel less like a chore and more like a responsible act.
Right.
Okay, so we've got cleaning feeders, keeping dogs leashed, and no more feeding the wildlife.
Yes.
Any other everyday actions we can add to our list?
Being mindful of our waste is another big one.
Okay.
Properly disposing of trash, especially food scraps,
Yeah.
can go a long way in preventing the spread of avian flu. It's all about breaking the chain.
Right.
We don't want to attract rodents or other animals that could come into contact with infected birds and then potentially spread the virus further.
It's like a domino effect. Each action leads to another. And speaking of taking action, I've heard that participating in citizen science projects can be a great way to get involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Citizen science is a powerful tool for collecting valuable data and contributing to scientific understanding.
Okay.
Projects like bird counts or monitoring programs can help researchers track avian flu and other wildlife diseases, giving them a better picture of what's happening on the ground.
It's empowering to know that we can all play a role in protecting these precious green spaces.
It is.
And it's not just about individual actions either, right?
You're right. Don't underestimate the power of collective action and advocacy. Supporting organizations that are working to protect wildlife and their habitats is another incredibly impactful way to contribute.
Okay.
Whether it's through donations, volunteering your time, or simply spreading awareness, every effort counts.
It sounds like there's a whole spectrum of ways to get involved, from changing our daily habits to actively supporting conservation efforts.
Exactly. And by working together, we can create a positive ripple effect that extends far beyond Rouge Park.
Yeah.
We can contribute to a healthier, more resilient future for both people and wildlife.
Well, I think we've thoroughly explored the depths of this topic.
I agree.
From the nitty-gritty details of avian flu to the philosophical questions about our relationship with nature.
It's been great.
And although this outbreak is concerning, it's important to remember that nature is incredibly resilient.
Yes.
With responsible actions and a little bit of hope, we can ensure that Rouge Park and its feathered inhabitants continue to thrive.
Beautifully said.
And for our listener, remember that Health Canada has excellent information about bird flu and its risks to humans.
It's a great resource.
Do your part, stay informed, and let's all work together to protect the amazing natural spaces we're so fortunate to have.
I agree.
Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.